I'm Harold Koda, curator in charge of the Costume Institute and co-curator on the exhibition Charles James Beyond Fashion.
And I'm Jan Glier Reader, co-curator, and I'm consulting curator for the Brooklyn Museum collection at the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
I'm thrilled that Charles James is inaugurating the Anna Wintour Costume Center and our new Lizzie and Jonathan Tisch Gallery, together with the Carl and Iris Barrel Apfel Gallery. If you wear a down jacket, if you've ever had a wrap dress, or the strapless gown, all of those things were innovations by James. Perhaps the only, and certainly the greatest, couturier that worked in New York City. He was an artist who happened to be working in fashion as his medium.
Our intention is to represent the entirety of James's design, vision, and also his innovative approach to everything that he did.
Given that James is considered an architect in cloth, we thought that there would be a real affinity by working with actual architects. We approached Diller, Scofidio Renfro and found that they were fascinated by the challenge of presenting a designer who, throughout his career, aspired to the transformation of a woman's natural anatomy into a kind of built structure that transformed her natural shape.
The Apfel Gallery is rather a smorgasbord of various objects and ephemera, documents and scrapbooks.
He's raised in circumstances of privilege in the UK, but comes to Chicago as a young man and decides to start a millinery business.
And began molding hats directly on the heads of some of his very willing clients.
And he's quite a success and moves very quickly on to designing clothing. We have included his eiderdown coat. It anticipates every down jacket and puffer coat of today. He is dedicated to the idea that the fashion industry has to transform. He was just fascinated by the play of the anatomy as it existed in everyday clothing and how it could be transformed to be something that approached an ideal. In the Lizzie and Jonathan Tisch Gallery, we have the opportunity to survey the whole career of James.
From the very beginning, he's approached his work as a sculptor. The Tisch Gallery is divided into 4 sections that represent different techniques that Charles James used: spirals and wraps, drapes and folds, platonic form, and anatomical cut.
A 1932 taxi dress, you see that sort of spiraling three-dimensional configuration.
It was so easy to put on that one could actually do it in a taxi, and shows how he was not constrained by any concepts of what was in style at the time.
You see draping and tucking that refer back to his work as a milliner, a jersey lobster dress.
Inspired by surrealist ideology, created by these upward tucks attached to a central spine. James said, "All of my seams have meaning. They say something about the human body."
James treated cloth as a very plastic medium. In the Special Exhibitions Gallery, you're confronted by a constellation of beautiful ball gowns floating in the dark.
We have created a glamorous ballroom with each of the gowns presented as a piece of sculpture.
As you move past, we have introduced an analytical component, monitors and robotic arms devised by Diller Scofidio, tracing out details of the garment, balancing the romance with all of the science and technology that went into creating that effect.
He was very much influenced by late Victorian bustle dresses, and the swan gown is a wonderful example. James's iteration, though, was a very light gown that he created with chiffon and beautiful transparent tulle. The umbrella dress is the first dress that he created using a real understructure and one of the very first strapless gowns.
He felt that every design had to have an erotic allure.
The tree ball gown has this wonderful sprouting flounce at the bottom. What's underneath, though, is the wonderful surprise. Layers of red, pink, and white nylon tulle that are only revealed when the wearer is moving. This cloverleaf ball gown incorporates his wonderful artistry as a sculptor and as a romanticist with the rigor of his understanding of engineering, cut, and construction in a way that made it wearable. Austin Hearst reported that it was remarkably comfortable to wear and she felt like a princess.
He was someone who was, throughout his career, evolving in his ideas about construction, but never deviated from the fact that he felt that the artifice of fashion could, in fact, improve the human body. If there was anything that worked against him as a business person, is that he saw his design output as artistic creation rather than something for commercial benefit. His whole methodology, his whole career was dedicated to an artistic practice. He was a sculptor in cloth.